Hey, everybody. So in October, the official HQ, Geocaching HQ blog post was based on the question, what advice do you have for finding Earth caches? And I love that they asked this question and they published some great advice from some notable Earth cache creators such as Lose Notes and ST Nolan. The real gold, though, was at the bottom of the overall post when they asked, what's your favorite Earth cache and why? Now, anytime on any platform that you give geocachers an opportunity to offer an opinion on Earth caches, oh, the haters come out. And this blog was no exception. So I'm going to offer my own little humble opinion, right? A counterpoint, if you will, on some of the commentary that was supplied, if you will. Full disclosure, right? This is all my own opinion, not endorsed by geocaching headquarters or the Geological Society of America. Although at times I will point out things that are on one or both of their websites. I'm also not a reviewer. I do believe that everyone is entitled to their own opinion. And I think that those are generally based on their own experiences. And again, I get all that. None of my commentary should be considered a personal attack on any of the geocachers. I don't know a single one of them, with the exception of GeoAware USA 9, the one reviewer that lent his thoughts at times. My intent is to simply discuss their comments and offer a different viewpoint, or also provide what should be happening according to the GSA or according to geocaching headquarters. I am going to edit some of the comments, but really only for brevity, not to help me make my argument any better. All right, so buckle up. This might get a bit unfiltered here. And of course, feel free to add to the conversation below in the comment section. First up is my favorite of all of the comments that were placed, and it's from Ian Davison. He writes, just get rid of Earth caches, full stop. They are the worst thing about geocaching. I hate them with a passion. All right, so here we go. No, that was not the very first one, but again, this is my favorite one. Really, right? We just want to get rid of them entirely, and you hate them with the passion. Doesn't provide any reasons. He just hates them. He'll still go find them, but he hates them, and that's fine. Again, he is entitled to his own opinion, but I think the reply from the EarthCache reviewer is priceless. GeoAware USA 9 goes on to say, I'd say the worst thing about geocaching is people who want to get rid of an aspect of the game just because they don't like it. I don't enjoy fishing caches 30 feet up a tree because they take me 42,000 years to get the thing hooked back up. But instead of asking for them to be banned, I just skip them. I thought that the reviewer handled that quite well. Now, compared to that comment, the rest are somewhat tame. Next one up is Lunar Magic 13 wrote, don't waste my time with them on trips. When going on a boat or bus trip, don't have time to run to 5 different locations and read about dirt, rocks, or water, etc. Should be able to post a picture where you were there and move. So yeah, I'm the exact opposite here. I seek them out on trips pretty exclusively, and I'm not going to sound the exaggeration alarm, but very few have multiple stops and 5 different waypoints. In the US, at least, that is an absolute rarity. No, I disagree. You should not be able to simply post a picture for proof and then move on, right? This goes against the entire intent of the program itself, which is to learn a little bit more about the world around you. And then last up is Killicle. I consider myself an EC veteran, both finding and placing them, and I would like to offer 2 comments. One, the guidelines are too strict, not allowing one to keep the logging conditions reasonable. The reviewers impose requirements, rendering the questions too hard, deterring players from wanting to log ECs. And the second one is there is no scientific review, and the content of some listings is not educational and or even wrong. All right. So I did a little bit of research. The cacher has written 19 Earth caches on 3 different continents, mainly in Europe, some in South America, and 1 or 2 in North America. And some of that might come into play here, right? Some of that's going to be relevant. So I don't know about the reviewers overseas, or at least the European reviewers. My extent has all been with the reviewers, 2 of the reviewers in the US, 1 reviewer in Canada, and the reviewer down under. And the ones that I have worked with, specifically the US reviewers, they don't require hard questions. They do require some that are oriented on observation and analysis, which is the GSA standard. And again, I've found the same with the Canadian and the reviewer down under. I have found a number of Earth caches in Europe, and I didn't think that any of the tasks were reasonably tough for me to accomplish. In regards to scientific review, that's on the cache owner themselves, right? The viewers are not geologists. The vast number of owners are also not geologists. But if you're going to create one, you have to make sure you do enough research in order for you to understand it and then to present it for the rest of us and to present it understandably. And if you're using AI to help you, you better verify it to make sure it's correct. The last point, if you come across one that's wrong, you should, I think, bring it up either to the owner or potentially to the reviewer, but you had better come with facts. I own one in Georgia that somebody had posted a log that said, hey, this is not talus. I come from out west, and this is an alluvial fan. Well, not according to the geological report on the park that it was placed at. So if you're going to come at somebody and say their Earth cache is wrong, I would be careful that you come with facts. That's it. Next up, we have a comment from Jack and Diane. For travelers like us, the key attraction to an Earth cache is it is not overly complicated, i.e., it doesn't take more than 10 minutes to read and understand what is required to get credit, and it educates on 1 to 2 key points. Recommend Earth cache owners think about the audience they want to target, e.g., they may want to consider a range novice to expert on the subject. And for them, I would say they nailed it. Yes, as you're creating one, you absolutely need to think of your audience. They are non-geologists. Again, you should be writing it at the 8th grade to maybe the high school level, not at the collegiate level. And I would argue not even on 2 key points, right? You write an Earth cache on 1 point. 1 lesson equals 1 Earth cache. And this isn't me, right? This is really the GSA's intent. When they talk about a range from novice to expert, that's really hard to do, but we have the difficulty rating system, right? 1 to 5. Again, if you want to make it difficult, that's fine. Just increase the difficulty rating on it, but don't rate it a D2 when in actuality, you should have probably rated a 4.5. Okay, so next we have JDog87. Seems like I'm the outlier. I don't like Earth caches because I feel if I don't answer the question correctly, the CO will belittle me and won't let me log the cache. All right. If you're a cache owner, 100% this should not be happening. If you want to turn people off to Earth caches, this is exactly how you do it. Now, can you correct folks when they provide incorrect answers? Yes, of course, you should be doing that. Can you delete the log? Absolutely. Although I think that's a rare instance. The only time I have ever deleted a log is when somebody has failed utterly to answer any of the questions. So they just logged it and didn't send me any answers. But you should not be belittling anybody. There were 2 sub comments on this one by S. Gerbs. I do not belittle anyone who attempts my Earth caches as long as they do their best to answer the questions. They're good. And then GeoAware, USA 9, Earth caches aren't about getting 100%. They're about learning, and a good cache owner should make sure that you're picking up the lesson as well as the plus one, the smiley. Next comment is from YHarak57. One that I don't need a science degree to complete, just fun and interesting to complete. Attended a lecture on publishing an Earth cache and felt the standards requirements were a bit much and none consistent among reviewers. So I teach a Earth cache writing 101 class, and I've done it now multiple places this year alone, to include Geo Woodstock. And I hope that this person did not attend one of my presentations. And the follow-on comment was made from GeoAware USA 9, who basically said the same thing. And while I've said it before, I'll say it again: you should not need a science degree to complete an Earth cache. It should be written at the high school level, if you will, with no requirement to know anything about geology or that part of geology beforehand. So this person also comments, are the requirements a bit too much? Okay, so there are pros and cons to Earth caches and to the requirements, and I would argue that they can be confusing at times, but you can always reach out to the reviewers if you have a question or an issue, or you can always reach out to me, of course. They also brought up that the reviewers potentially may be inconsistent. I don't know if I can argue that point necessarily. And finally, we have Tarheel00. I like Earth caches, but I will purposely avoid them for two specific reasons. Love it. One, I don't want to have 10 questions with 3 sub-questions for each question. I generally don't like to work on a single cache for the whole day. You may miss one piece in the process. You already left. Now you don't have the answer. Number two, when I'm at a state or national park, I'm there for the park more than the geocache. Again, not looking to have to spend a ton of time working a problem. I want to enjoy the park. I'm not a scientist. Sometimes answers take some real digging. Sometimes they are subjective. Just my thought. I actually like virtuals national parks when it only took a picture. You get to see the sites without the extra work. Okay. If you avoid them, great. No issues, but that's the exaggeration alert. The percentage of Earth caches that have 10 questions with 3 sub-questions each, I want to say is non-existent. Or, hey, send me a link to those that actually have 30 requirements in order to log them. I would love to see this. I have not come across one in all of my travels or all of my cataloging of active Earth caches. Maybe I missed one somehow. As for missing a task, okay, yeah, I have actually been there before myself. There's also steps that you can take to make sure that you don't miss a task. When I am planning something, when I'm planning a road trip, I print off all the Earth caches that I intend to find, and specifically the questions, the tasks themselves, so that once I get to ground zero, I can work them. Okay, the last statement: virtuals in national parks, when it only took a picture, you get to see the sites without the extra work. All right, he's got his opinion. My opinion is that this just feels lazy. I don't want to log a traditional cache without actually finding the container. That's the kind of vibe that this is giving off here. So, okay, then simply don't find Earth caches. That's it. Next up, we've got JAB007. Earth caches should be fun, learning moments, not exams, a photo that you were at the site, and some commentary on the geological feature should be sufficient. It is a fun game. Keep it interesting and achievable. I think done well, Earth caches can be fun, and the tasks don't have to be exams. But for just some commentary, that doesn't really meet the standard that the GSA is looking for. Of course, again, you don't need to have an essay. I think a sentence or two per question is generally sufficient. Anything more than that, you probably don't need anything. When you get one-word answers, those are insufficient in my book, if you will. Dark Scorpio also replied, sure, there are various levels, but it happened to me a lot of times that even a D1 Earth caches were very difficult to accomplish, especially those abroad in foreign languages with no English translation. Translating apps often do not translate the listing correctly. I think a D1 should be quite simple to do, e.g., read an info board at a site and find the answer there and take a photo. All right, so the person does have a point. Again, we talked about the rating of the difficulty. If you're going to have it super difficult, right, the difficulty rating should match what you feel is difficult, and there's no standard for that necessarily. They also brought up when you're abroad, right? There's no requirement for the cache owner to have it written in English. The requirement is to have it written in the native language, and anything above and beyond that is really up to the cache owner. So, yes, you may have to rely on translation apps. And sometimes those cache owners are generous enough to help you out on that, but that's just something that you're going to have to deal with. Right. While a D1 should be easy to do under the current guidelines, at no time should any Earth cache should you be able to find the answers on an info board, because what happens when that info board goes away? And I'm sure many of you, I know I've come upon to ground zero only to find that the board is no longer there for some reason. And then now, what are you supposed to do, right? That's frustrating in and of itself. And again, it's not required. I'm sorry, it is not allowed under the current guidelines. All right, Kate 8 wrote, I love the idea of Earth caches, but we end up avoiding them. All right, no problem. I want them to teach me about the cool geological features of an area, but instead the creators ask for information that is usually not available at the cache. How about if the Earth caches have fun information about the area or point to a sign that has fun info about the area, rather than expecting the finder to write a multi-page thesis about a rock pattern that they know nothing about? Pretty please make these fun instead of a frustration. Did you hear that? That is the exaggeration alert again, right? Creators asking for information that is not usually available at the cache. Really, maybe with some older ones, but not now. I think the reviewers in their gatekeeping duties would prevent that. Wait, what was that again? Really? A multi-page thesis? All right. I've never had to write a multi-page thesis for an answer. Again, usually a sentence or two suffices. Are there Earth caches out there with crazy requirements? Absolutely. Typically, again, they are the older ones, but that's not 100% always the case. The closest Earth cache to me that I will probably never find is one that actually has crazy requirements that I don't fully understand, and I'll probably never log it because of that. But that doesn't mean that Earth cache is representative of all of them in whole. So, yeah. Next up is the spirit demons. What is frustrating is when there are loads of questions and there might be a couple I'm not 100% on. Usually, though, the CO is pretty good, and as long as you have made a reasonable effort and is okay about your answers. All right, so this is what I do. I take some photos and maybe some notes if I, again, have things really planned out, if I'm going on a longer road trip. And I, concurred that I've come across some that I'm not 100% sure on. And I simply put in my answer, hey, look, I'm not a geologist. This is what I think on this one. And I've never had one get kicked back. Yes, I understand that there are some cache owners that will do that to you. As a cache owner myself, again, all I ask is a reasonable effort. Okay, Lucky Luke 78 I wish that the app would be developed further to accommodate the process of logging Earth caches, submitting answers by the visitors, and reviewing the answers by the owners. It is a bit old-fashioned to send messages back and forth. Similar functionality to Adventure Labs or another processor app would be more than welcome. So it's old-fashioned to send messages back and forth? Isn't that what we do with virtuals as well? And can you really do an Adventure Lab style functionality for Earth caches? I would not agree with that sentiment. Many times, right, the way I teach how to do tasks in my class is to use open-ended answers, open-ended questions. And sometimes there's more than one answer. So I'm not a big Adventure Lab person, but my understanding is that, whatever the answer is really what the cache owner creator put in there. And you simply can't do that with Earth caches. Again, what if the geocacher finding it is off by a word for some reason or something of that nature? Can you imagine how frustrating that would be to have a process like that? And then finally, we have Geo and Marti. When you attempt to create one, keep in mind the most important thing is it needs to be a science lesson, even if it's a simple one. Find something unique and learn about it and teach the rest of us a lesson. Always cite any sources you use and get permission for sites on public lands. They take a little work to create, but the satisfaction of completion of it is gratifying. Simple science lesson? Yep. Find something unique? Yep. Learn about it? Yep. Right? Again, you got to know a little bit more about it before you can teach the rest of us. Cite sources? Yep. Not required, but smart to do. And I always do it. Permission? Yep. Sort of, depending on where ground zero is. And they take a little work, but they're gratifying. Yep. I think at the end of the day, haters are really going to hate. And this applies most certainly to Earth caches. I feel that it's like debating politics on Facebook. You're likely not going to change any minds, right? And I think it's the same, unfortunately, here. Even though I'm giving you my comments and I'm giving you what they're based on, again, am I going to change any minds? Hopefully. We'll see. GeoWare USA 9, though, he had a great post the other day on this. What interests me the most is that the guidelines and design suggestions Geocaching Headquarters and the GSA have adapted or specifically changed to address much of what people are venting about in the comments. They shouldn't require a PhD. They are supposed to be at the high school level. They should have no more than a few questions. And owners should be part of the learning process, not berating people about wrong answers. I think some people base their opinions about Earth caches on experiences they had before these guideline changes took effect. I hope they see this and give Earth caches another shot. 100% agree with him, and I don't think I could say it any better. So I will leave it at that. I hope you enjoyed this video. Perhaps I changed one mind or two minds out there. I don't know. Feel free to lead your comments and provide some discussion with me on this in the comments below. Of course, if you want, I would love for you to give it hit that like button, right? It's that favorite point that you never run out of. And if you are not already, would love to have you as a subscriber to the channel. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.